Hey guys, this is Jordan with Texas State, and I'm here with Chris Ferrel of the Richards Group. And you can kind of give a background on yourself, Chris, and what you do there and stuff like that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me. My name's Chris Ferrel. I'm a digital strategy director at the Richards Group. In my fifth year here with the agency, and so I help our clients bring their brand strategy to life in digital. So that touches really six big groups of digital technology for a lot of different brands and of all sizes and verticals. But we really focus on things like social media, digital advertising, analytics, mobile web, both app and web development, and then lots and lots of things around measurement and analytics. And we also have a big focus on this emerging world of marketing technology and cloud technology, and then emerging tech like Internet of Things type pieces.
Right. So y'all are kind of like a one-stop shop of digital media products, essentially, or?
Yes, I mean we try to help whatever the client's business needs are. Usually there's a way that digital can help.
Awesome. So your South by session is called Skip Button Love Affair. Is that correct?
Yes, that's
And so
correct.
where did that idea stem from? Like what kind of prompted you to want to speak at South by? Was that kind of something that the Richards Group wanted, or you wanted, or a combination of the two?
Um, yeah, so it was a topic that I've been thinking about for quite a while, really. This ability in digital to either force a view or skip an ad is pretty interesting to me. So it's a topic that we've been thinking about, across a lot of different brands and businesses, but really wasn't until recently that there seemed to be industry data that could actually support whether or not it was something we should even worry about. So this whole thing really started with just a couple simple questions. The first one was how many digital ads are skippable? How many actually give the user the power of choice to skip or not? And then secondly, does it matter? Does the skip button matter? Should we even really be worrying about whether or not an impression is skippable or non-skippable? If there's no measurable difference, then maybe it's all just academic discussion and not really valid in a real world setting.
Right. Yeah, I feel like when I'm going through Twitter or through Facebook and I see an ad, and granted, I work on Facebook ads, so I'm a little more familiar with them when I see them. But I know, especially on Twitter, sometimes they make it really almost difficult to see that it's a promoted post, and that you can dismiss it or hide it. Like the hide button isn't always just front and center. So that I definitely could see that. So did you mentioned like the analytics? Is that kind of like the research you did beforehand? Before you?
Yeah, so we tried to prove it out a little bit. So I just wanted to know, as a user of digital, how likely are you to come across an ad that you have the power to skip or not? So what we did was we poured through the last 10 years were the most helpful of revenue data from IAB, so Interactive Advertising Bureau reports every single year, really since the early 2000s, where digital ad revenue is coming from. So everything from search revenue to display revenue, and then lots of different categorizations within that. So that was really the foundation of a lot of the research. We cut it in a way that I don't think has been looked at very often or frequently. The way that we cut it was, rather than cutting it by devices or cutting it by video or banner ad or other formats, we cut the data by whether or not a user could skip the ad or was given the power to skip within
Right.
the ad experience. And that cut of the data really led to some really interesting findings that became the kind of foundation of this talk.
Okay. Yeah, and I don't want you to give away too much because I
Oh, that's
obviously
fine. I mean, yeah, I don't mind giving
right.
giving it away. I
So
think
so
more people talk about it, the better.
it'll be very data driven is what it sounds like.
Uh, so I think the insight is supported by data, but I think the key discussion is a much more um, uh, tangible one,
Okay.
and that
It
is
sounds like it could almost be like a logical one too.
yes, it's this thing that we use every day, this thing that we encounter across the internet, and it's not just the YouTube skip button, right? It's ability to scroll right past a Facebook ad or scroll right past a Twitter ad or LinkedIn ad or Instagram ad, the ability to scroll right past a native sponsored article on a site, or even with Snapchat you can tap right past an ad. So that sort of user experience is very, very different than sort of the last decade or so of digital advertising, where we had And we still, too, to a certain degree, have a lot of ad experiences where there's either a user looking to frantically find the exit button, or they're looking at the countdown to this
Right.
interstitial that takes over their entire screen,
Right.
or they're frantically trying to figure out where is the skip button, and if there's not, like, how long do I have to sit here and wait?
Right.
15
Yeah, it becomes
seconds,
second nature, like on
30
YouTube, to
seconds.
wait. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so there's this interesting insight of perhaps that is one of the biggest barriers to effective advertising in digital than almost anything else, because it immediately gives you either, for a lot of people, a visceral reaction to having to sit there and wait 15 seconds or 30 seconds or so.
Right.
And so what does that do for the brand? And I think at a basic level, we all agree that that not all impressions are created equal when it comes to advertising. But when you start to unpack that further, there's not a lot of consensus on the value of a very efficient and sometimes forced view compared to a tougher to get attention earned view, or voluntary attention is what we refer to it as.
Right.
But,
And so you'll kind of touch on all those different platforms as well as far as social media goes.
yeah, and I think the goal is to not just start the dialogue, but also show how brands are starting to think about this and actually put things into market that are effective. So that's everything from strategically, how do you think about the planning and buying of these sorts of ad experiences? It comes to the creative, like how do we think about the story arc of our creative when there's an earned view in mind, where that attention that is so precious and so hard to come by. How do we think about where the story arc lies? Is it an early story arc? Is it something that needs to hook you in a different way? Compared to kind of the more classic, really driven by TV and broadcast creative constructs, where there is a late story arc or something where the peak, the punchline, the payoff of a TV ad is often in the last few seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And in digital, and especially in these skippable placements, that tends to not work as well.
Yeah, you got to get their attention quick if you want to get it at all.
Right.
Interesting. Okay, so I'll use my little line I had written there for you when I sent these questions over, because I thought I was clever. So, in regards to the rise in skippable ad formats, why should people not skip out on your session?
I love how the question's phrased. I appreciate it. I think number one is what we found, and why I think everyone should check this out, is the skip button matters. It matters because the ability to skip an ad is growing. I mean, from the research that we've seen, this past year was the first time that revenue from skippable display ads has surpassed those of non-skippable ads. And if you look at the trajectory of where the spend is going in the next 5 years, by 2021, we're talking about nearly 74% of all display ad revenue in digital will be from skippable ad formats. So it matters because it's growing. It matters strategically. Kind of mentioned that it really does shift how we plan and buy. There's this very kind of almost provocative new media buying idea around buying on time spent, and that's a very different type of planning and buying model than on a CPM or cost per impression or a cost per action. So that's a different way to approach strategically. And then creatively, I kind of already touched on that, but the different story arcs and how we think about effective skippable ads. And then lastly, it matters because of measurement. The technology today, I think, is really enabling us to measure an impact versus a forced view time versus voluntary time from a non-skippable or from a skippable ad format. So that's interesting to kind of think about, is where you can really see what is effective advertising when I am given the skip button versus when I am not.
Right.
And so all those kind of summarizes, I think, the skip button matters.
Oh no, that's awesome. Well, I'm excited. I know my bosses will want me to be there with my laptop open, taking a copious amount of notes, as will my teacher. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. Is there anything else beyond what we've talked about or what was listed kind of on the South by site that you would want people to know ahead of the panel?
Yeah, it's probably more of an important admission. I skip ads.
Yeah.
I skip ads every single day.
Right.
And as a user, I love it. When I'm given that skip button, it gives me power and control over the experience. So as a user, I love it. As an advertiser, it's probably more of a complicated love affair. So, uh,
Absolutely. No, that's good. That's good. Well, here.